All right, guys, for this lesson, we are going to be creating a landscape painting, specifically a vector landscape. So the difference between a regular landscape and a vector landscape is a regular landscape will have all of the details and like every single thing will be visible to some extent, right? And yeah, that's generally what we think about when we look at like pictures and photos of like vacations and things like that. People will take a picture of a landscape. Vector landscapes, however, the word vector, right, that's used in art as like just shapes, right? So you can use them as synonyms. So shape landscape, all right? So here we have the shape of this rock structure, the shape of this rock structure, the shape of this one, the shape of the wolf, the shape of the trees, without actually seeing every single little tiny detail in those things. And those shapes are layered on top of each other, okay? So this layer is on top of this layer, which is on top of this layer, which is on top of this layer, etc., etc., etc. Okay, those layers are those shapes are layered on top of each other, so that you can they represent different parts of the landscape. Okay, so that's what we're working on. We're working on a vector landscape. The reason is because it's easier than an actual landscape. It takes away all of the details that may be distracting and keeps the most important parts at and like the bare minimum for what you need to see a landscape. Okay, is it as impressive as a real landscape? No, but is it like still a visible landscape, like an understandable landscape to your brain? Yeah, so that's why we're gonna do it. Okay, so we're gonna be practicing how to create values, different values using this vector landscape. So if you notice, so value is how dark or light something is relative to other parts of the image. So for example, this part right here has a very dark value, whereas this area in the sky has a light value, right? So we have black and then we have white. Those are the two extremes. And then in between those two things, we have an infinite number of options to choose from when it comes to values. Okay, so we have like a slightly lighter gray, so a dark gray, right? And then we have this medium gray. Then here and here, there's such a slight difference that you can barely even see it, but because of that difference, it separates the two, right? So in a landscape, there's something called atmospheric perspective. The things that are further away from you, in a like, let's say I'm standing right here, right? I'm holding the camera and I'm looking out at this landscape. Anything that's further away gets lighter and lighter, okay? But if you were to see these mountains up close, like let's say instead of like all the way over here, I was standing right here, right? This mountain would look the same as this mountain, okay? Because it's all just rocks, trees, and whatever. It's just the way the world works, right? The further away something is from you, the lighter it gets, okay? So that's atmospheric perspective, and we're gonna be using that in our vector landscape. So things that are further away, we're gonna make it lighter. So the easiest way, so the first thing you have to do is actually trace the image, right? If you don't know how to do that, please make sure you watch the video on how to do that in the previous slide, or in one of the previous slides. And I'm going to be starting from front to back, okay? Or in this case, bottom to top, all right? We need to remember, even though we're looking at an image, this looks like the back, right? Because of that atmospheric perspective, things that are further away are lighter, right? So it looks like the back, but in reality, this is just a sheet of paper, right? This is just a sheet of paper, and this is the bottom of the paper, and this is the top of the paper. Okay, so I'm gonna be working from bottom to top because this is dark to light, okay? You can work light to dark, but I actually find for landscapes, it's easier to work like things with things that are darker and then slowly move back and get lighter, all right? So you'll see what my painting looks like. I'm just gonna paint it all in one go. I'm not really gonna be paying attention to these little details in the trees. I'm just gonna get a general shape and like kind of fill in my different shapes, similar to how I would paint a coloring book. The hardest part of this is actually going to be mixing the paint itself, because these changes are so subtle, right? Adding a little bit of black might make it like much darker than I want it to be. Adding a little bit of white might not make it as light as I want it to be, right? So really testing is gonna be important here, and slowly building it to be darker or lighter and lighter, okay?